Hello and welcome. I'm Piers and Guillem, CEO of RDX Works, a core developer of the decentralized finance protocol Radix, a public ledger entirely focused on bringing DeFi into the mainstream. This is our podcast, the DeFi Download, a show about decentralized finance and all things crypto, where we dive into the details of the projects, assets, and services that are powering the DeFi revolution. Today, I'm joined by Jordi and Guillem, founders and CEO and CTO of Potion.finance. Potion.finance is democratizing risk management. Potion protects you from the risks in DeFi ecosystems, making it sustainable. It is easy to access, open, and transparent. Guys, we've had you on the podcast before. It's great to have you back. Welcome back.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
You're very welcome. So, I think the goals of Potion are huge. Like we previously spoke about sort of Potion's approach to risk management when it comes to writing things like options and derivatives and stuff like that, and the really interesting approach you guys have taken with the Kelly criterion versus the traditional black option Scholes model. We're not going to be going so much into the technology, like the theoretical underpinnings of it today, but we're instead going to talk about some of the really interesting practical things you guys have been doing in the year or so since we last spoke, and actually what's happening right now. So there's this game, Potion Unlock, that's happening. So can you please explain what is happening and why should people care?
So yes, it's been a long journey since we last spoke, and we've been focusing on two things fundamentally. One is in getting the protocol ready. It's been audited, it's been back tested, back and forth on many directions. And then we've also been trying to figure out how we could launch it in a way that was legally safe for us as a team. And this is what is happening right now. We are big believers in true decentralization. We believe that it can be a source of a lot of good for the world. And we're excited to try and be pioneers in new ways to launch in a decentralized way. And that's what Potion Unlock is about. Maybe I can describe it really, really briefly.
Yeah.
I don't know if maybe your audience will be familiar with the Dragon Ball. It's this anime cartoon.
Oh, you're talking about Dragon Ball Z?
Yeah, exactly, Dragon Ball Z. So you have this basically this big dragon, right? That is this massive power, and this power is so big that it needs to be broken down, right? And it's broken down into these balls, and it's kind of spread around the world. And then Goku, the hero of the cartoon, spends his time trying to get all these Dragon Balls and reunite them. And then when you reunite them, then that massive power can be released, and the dragon shows up. So we're doing something very similar, which is we have this massive power, which is a decentralized protocol for derivatives. And what we've done is we have actually spread it across many, many different pieces. Right. So basically the protocol has been stored on IPFS, encrypted, and then the password has been broken down in lots of different small chunks, shards. And we've sold these NFTs, and each NFT buyer gets a chunk of the password. And then the community must play this consensus game, where in order for the code to be decrypted, first the community must come together. And we did the sale last week, and this week the game is actually beginning, which is really interesting because it's fully unaided. It's the community reaching that consensus entirely on their own devices. Sometimes we talk about it a little bit like the loot. We've given out the cards, and then the game is open-ended. It's up to the people to come up with a way to reach consensus and decrypt the protocol. And when it happens, it will be the community, in some sense, that is open sourcing the code, which we think is an interesting mechanic.
Super interesting. It's super interesting. So basically what's happening here is you guys have written the code for how Potion works. Mm-hmm. And I assume you say you've had it audited as well.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
But it is not open source right now. It's hidden, and so you've taken this code base, you've encrypted it, you put it on IPFS, and collectively there's the ability to unlock the encryption key that then allows you to decrypt it.
Correct.
And then presumably you're hoping then whoever manages to do that, or whoever set manages to do that, will then publish the code, and then someone else will choose to pay for the fees that are necessary to deploy it onto Ethereum, which I'm assuming is going to be the first place you deploy the code base to. And so, at base, this is around a few concepts, right? One of them being that whoever controls, like, there's often like this idea of like a controller of a code base, right? And this is saying, well, actually the community controls the code base, because the community were the ones who took the underlying code, and then they could have done anything with it. They could have actually kept it proprietary if they wanted to. They could release it on whatever license they choose, and so it's up to them to decide what happens next. And how long do you think this game's going to last for?
So it's hard to say, because it's completely open-ended, and it's open-ended by design. So we don't want to restrict it too much. But within 3 months, that feels like a reasonable amount of time for people to come to an agreement and go through with this decentralized genesis, which is what we were struggling to find, because normally for something to be born, you can expect a father and a mother, or somehow somebody is taking that step. What we're trying is to have this decentralized genesis where the code is being open source, and if there is ever a deployment, is not done by any one person, but rather by a community directly.
Right. And from the point of view of you guys as participants in this, like when it deploys, like where do you guys act in the system? What's your role and purpose from that point forwards?
You go for it again.
Yeah, I think, once the system is running, there will be a bunch of stakeholders around this ecosystem performing different functions. Many of them will have to do with operational issues. Mm-hmm. Those are the ones where we won't be involved in. We will be involved in the research kind of development surrounding the Potion ecosystem that we want to build. So, we consider ourselves researchers, developers, and we want to stay in that remit in a sense. And, we want to commit to, a mission of open source development. So we have a bunch of new ideas. We have a lot of, passion around our mission of bringing risk management to the crowds in DeFi. Mm-hmm. And, our mission will be to continue developing these ideas, creating new ideas, developing in general.
Okay, understood. So you guys are going to be researching and looking to help improve whatever it is that the community instantiates at the starting point. So, like, what is this code going to be able to do? Like, what are you expecting the first users to be doing with Potion, with the Potion protocol once it's live?
Yeah, I think the code we've built is a fully fledged AMM for derivatives, and so as an AMM, we expect to see in general two categories of users. One will be the kind of derivative buyers, the takers of the insurance. Like we spoke about it in the previous episode. In this B0, we are actually shipping a very particular flavor of derivatives, which is put options, which can be regarded as price insurance instruments.
Right.
So there will be the buyers of this price insurance, and this will be one category of users. And then there will be the sellers of this price insurance, what will basically be LPs for the Potion AMM.
Right.
Within these categories, I think there's going to be also like a variety of different types of players. with different types of interests. But luckily, the protocol itself is already accounting for that, for different types of user journeys, like from basic usage types where you just kind of go with the crowd and try to kind of social trade and see what are the most popular options being traded right now. You can examine what is the performance and so on, and with a single click experience you can get into these sort of positions as a buyer or as a seller. And then there will be kind of more involved kind of user journeys where buyers can take into more complex instruments. They can customize their insurance more kind of in a more kind of advanced way, and especially LPs, they will be able to take on very, very custom positions as market makers. And in that sense, like, we expect to bring all sort of talents to the table. We've actually developed a bunch of analytical tools for them. That's something that we're shipping as well with Potion Unlock, something we call Potion Analytics. I think that's actually, it's like a companion tool, a companion app to the LP side of Potion, where you can do really, really advanced analytics on LP positions, and you can do back testing, and you can basically come up with the particular bonding curves that you want to use based on your risk reward profile. So we also want to attract, kind of more of these research oriented traders that want to, kind of put forward interesting bonding curves for the community and for themselves, obviously.
I think this is like probably the crux of the difficulty of what you guys are doing, is the user experience. Like from a mathematical point of view, the maths is not. I mean, the maths of the Kelly criterion is relatively complicated, but the calculate, like the basic calculation of what a description of what a derivative is, right? Like for, let's say I want to put a put option on Bitcoin, and I'm worried about the price over the next 30 days, and I'd like to make sure that if the price drops below $30,000, that it pays out, that it pays out like that. I can say that in a relatively short space of time. What starts to become really complicated is the risk management of selling that option, and the pricing of buying that option, right? And like those are if anyone hasn't already gone to the sort of potion.finance, potion.fi website, like what you guys have been doing around the user experience, I think is actually quite groundbreaking. Just trying to create visualization tools around what it is that can help decode the complexity from oh my God, I've suddenly got to understand the Greeks, to, okay, if I move this slider here and this slider here, I can see what might happen to my capital. I can see what might happen to my returns. But I understand that essentially underpinning this all is a statistical thing, right? Like, I don't know what's going to happen. Unlike Uniswap, I can't look at Uniswap and go, well, as long as there's this many trades, I'm going to make this much money. It's like it's a random walk of what might happen to my returns. And I think this is sort of so interesting and important about the Kelly criterion, that we've already spoken about, at length. But the work you guys have done on the user interface is amazing. But let's take a really simple journey, right? Let's start with someone who wants to buy a put option on Bitcoin, right? Can you describe to me both sides of that? First, the buyer journey, and then the LP journey, and how those two things look.
Mm-hmm. As a buyer, like, obviously you will need, like, suppose there's some liquidity there waiting for you.
Yeah, let's assume that it's up and running. There's plenty of liquidity. Let's start with that assumption for sure.
Yeah. So first thing, like being an AMM, that basically means that you will have availability on demand 24/7 for your whatever you want to buy. So this insurance you were mentioning. That's already a very important point. Like you will be able, first thing is that you will be able to come to the platform, do some things. We'll get into that in a second. But immediately you will be able to get your fully collateralized insurance on-chain tokenized in your wallet, right? So that's already a big advantage of being an AMM. Then
sure, but what do I need? What do I need as the user? Like to start off with, I've got a Bitcoin position. Let's say my Bitcoin position is 5 BTC. And I want to make sure that if the price, worried about volatility right now, fair enough, lots of uncertainty in the world. I want to ensure that if Bitcoin drops below 30,000, I'm not going to lose any more money, right?
Yeah.
Up to 30,000, I'm cool with the loss. After that, I'm not. And I want to insure it for the next 6 months.
Yeah, if you know that, you already have most of the things that you need, like, because those are the two fundamental parameters, right? Mm-hmm. To what extent you want to be insured and for how long.
Yep.
Once you know that, in the interface, it will be very easy. You will see all the available assets right there. You will just need to select the asset, select your strike price, this level of insurance we were saying, select the duration, and then you will see a quote for that premium, right?
And the quote will be in dollars?
That quote would be in USDC, which is the collateral we're using right now, and the kind of premium token that we're using right now. That is flexible and in the future may change, but for now it will be USDC. So we will need some USDC to pay for that. And once you pay for that, you will immediately get that token in the same transaction. So there will be one transaction.
I get a token back that represents my position.
Your position, exactly.
And is that? I'm assuming that's an NFT. I'm making some guesses.
That's actually an ERC20 token.
It's an ERC20.
Yeah, and it will be tradable for you. So if at some point you want to offset your position, you could do so by trading that ERC20 token.
So is it an ERC20 of that specific position, so that there's only one issue of that ERC20? Well, someone else could buy exactly the same contract.
Yeah, that contract will be, Bitcoin, $30,000 expiring on a given date. Mm-hmm. And then, that position, it's basically constantly minting ERC20s as people come to the platform and buy collateralized insurance, basically.
As a slight aside, like obviously Uniswap v3 decided to represent positions as NFTs rather than as ERC20s. Why did you guys decide to go down the, token, fungible token route rather than non-fungible token route to represent a specific bet?
I mean, for us, there was... it was an easy choice because, in the background, we're integrated with Open, and this is actually a dependency that comes from Open. I don't know if people is familiar with Open. It's a derivatives fundamental protocol that basically is in charge of producing the vessels for insurance, right? So it's a protocol that is it was initially specifically in charge of tokenizing option contracts. Mm-hmm. And that's what we use in the background. So Potion is connected to Open, and every time you're buying something in the background, we're actually calling Open and tokenizing that thing through Open. But beyond that, like, I think an ERC20 position basically allows you to kind of offset. If you want to, imagine that you want to sell part of your position,
sure,
you will be able to do so, and that's already a big advantage with regard to an NFT, right? Imagine
so I can now sell a part of
half of your position, 1/4.
Yeah, right. Okay, interesting. And so, like, all right, now I've got my token that represents my 6-month position. Right. And let's say that the market is moved substantially for me. Right. And so Bitcoin has unfortunately dropped to $20,000. Mm-hmm. But I'm only 2 months into my into my contract. What can I do now?
Your contract was 6 months,
6 months,
you said? Yeah. So in that case, since the contract is still not expired, you won't be able to claim, you won't be able to claim a payoff yet to the position. What you would be able to do is to kind of sell your position and exit it in a secondary market, if that would be your.
And how are you guys
choice.
seeing that secondary market may emerge?
That's a good question. I think we are not supporting explicitly the secondary market specifically right now in Potion, but you could potentially do so in Uniswap, where some of these positions are traded.
I suppose that's where the complexity that I'm sort of trying to understand is, because my position is specific, right? It's a 6-month put option that started on this day and ends on that day. It's a European put option, meaning that it only is callable at expiry, not before. Obviously, the pricing of it changes over time if someone will price it for me. And but if someone won't price it for me, then it's essentially, valueless until the point that the option has an illiquid market. So, I mean, there's definitely the potential for it to be traded. That is interesting. I think that's almost at the same level of interesting secondary effect problem as the primary one is. Issuing of the option, absolutely. But if you have a European option that can't be called, then what does the liquidity profile of that look like up until the point that you want to call it? Because there's going to be points where I'm going to be like, well, I'll take profit. That looks good, because there's still, the vol down the line. And I don't know, at 6 months time, maybe it's, Bitcoin's bounced back. We're back in the bull cycle again. I don't want to bounce on that point too much, but I think it's a really interesting. It's going to be a really interesting challenge for your community to go, well, we've got these things. They do have theoretical value. How do we create a tradable market for them?
Yeah, maybe I can add here a couple of points. One is that we considered converting the AMM into a two-way AMM, where not only did it allow you to buy products, but also sell them back.
Right.
And I think the same logic that we applied to finding a price at the time of sale could be applied on the reverse direction to price it when you're buying it.
Right.
Plus adding some fee. Like if you're the taker, then you may want to adapt that. But beyond that, I think...
Which makes a lot of sense, because it gives you the opportunity for the person to close out a risk position.
Exactly, right. So the LP may also desire it completely. But beyond that, I think kind of the way we're seeing the market move is, and I think you said it really well, we want to appeal to the regular person, right? I think at the moment, derivatives is something that is very much for the elite, super sophisticated, highly educated financial person.
Right.
Whereas I think the use case actually is not that sophisticated. It's just hedging your position. That should be a very simple use case. So I think this whole business of the expiration and all that stuff, I think is adds a lot of friction. So I think the direction in which we're going is more expiration-less. Right. So just pay as you go. You're either hedged or you're not hedged, and then you come in and come out. It's that simple.
Right.
So I think we're more likely to go into that direction, over buying back positions, or kind of promoting a secondary market,
right. And then if you have a perpetual, then the tokenization makes way more sense as well, right? Because you're just saying, "Oh, I have a." You don't have
hedged Bitcoin.
I have hedged Bitcoin, right?
Exactly.
At this price.
Exactly.
And I don't have the extra category of over this time frame between these two dates.
Exactly. Exactly. And I think for us, I think we spoke about this on the previous podcast, almost as end users, we're trying to design the product that we would like to use. What we'd like to use is just something that hedges your portfolio.
Right.
And I don't want to think about it. I just have these holdings.
Right.
Can I get a smart contract to hedge on my behalf? And I choose my hedging level. That's the degree of freedom I have.
Right.
But that's it. I have a super simple experience. The premium is being paid from principal. Super low friction.
Right. Because I'm like, okay, like, what's it going? You almost want like continuous clearance, right? I'm just like, okay, I start the hedging process. I put in, I don't know, 100 USDC. It like after a week, it's like, oh, you need to top up if you want to continue hedging at this level. Okay, fine, cool. I'll do that.
Even better. Not even the USDC. It pays from the principal. Like it takes a little bit of the Bitcoin.
Oh, so I just put wrapped BTC in.
Yeah, exactly. It needs to be on the right network, but yeah, correct.
Yeah. So as in like I have my position I'm trying to hedge, and then I use my position to actually create
to fund the hedging.
It's interesting. That is interesting. Because it's actually got the right profile for both a put and a call option. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And for me, like ideally something that you don't need to, like this topping up, that for me is a step that I'd rather not take. I'd rather put Ethereum and be it for 20 years and it's automatically hedging. And then in 20 years, I go back and then I have my holdings there that were hedged all along. And I didn't need to do anything. It's just coming in and coming out. That's it.
Right. And so, okay, so that's where you want to get to.
Yeah.
What stopped you getting there so far? Like, what's the complexity?
So we wanted to test the kind of the basic principles. We are doing something quite groundbreaking in terms of the financial derivations that we're using.
Right.
We're the first team in the world are using the Kelly criterion to price options.
Yeah.
So we actually, while we want to get to the mainstream person, we actually thought that it probably made sense to start with the sophisticated people first to battle test it. And then once we can see that the things work in the wild as expected, then we can go out and optimize for the mainstream market.
Yeah. And I think the buyer side, like, there's plenty of options, of opportunities for you to do a variety of access points to this market. But what really stops you from doing that, at least currently, is having scalable liquidity. So, which brings us to the LP side. I think from the beginning we detected that if you really want to have a properly scaled and liquid market of these things, you need the other side to be there and to be there in scale. And I think that's actually the main issue that we were targeting with the B0 of Potion. I mean, it's a two-sided market. Obviously, it's a complete AMM, of course. But I think the main value that we're bringing is potentially on the LP side, bringing the risk management capabilities to LPs also, not only to buyers, but especially to the LPs, right? Allowing them to have positions that can be as passive as possible and that can generate long-term yield for them in automated risk management strategies.
Right. So let's take the LP side, the liquidity provider side. So let's go through two categories of end state, right? The first is my Bitcoin put position. Actually, after 6 months, turns out we were wrong about hard money being the future, and Bitcoin's at $10,000. And I bought my put option at $30,000 for 5 Bitcoin. So I'm now $100,000 in the money, right? Cool. $100,000 in the money, 6 months point, right? And then the other end state is, Bitcoin never drops below 30,000. And after 6 months, I've basically I paid what the quote was, and that's gone somewhere. So now let's talk about the LP side. So let's say for argument's sake that the price of that option was 10% of the value of the Bitcoin, right? So for argument's sake, let's say that it's 60,000 per Bitcoin. At the start of this, it's not. It's 45,000. Let's say it's 45,000. So that's $225,000 dollars principal. It was 10%, so it's 22,500. So I've paid 22,500 for this option. That's gone in, right? And in one scenario, I get back $100,000 because I was right, and unfortunately Bitcoin hit 10,000. In the other scenario, it never hit 30,000, and 22,500 of my principal has gone somewhere. So that's the setup. So let's talk about the LP side. So the liquidity providers, what DeFi has taught us, I think, is that if you can make liquidity provision simple, you can bootstrap markets that are more liquid than professional ones, right? Like Uniswap v2. Uniswap v3 is a bit more complicated. Uniswap v2 did a fantastic job of this, where they went, right, if you've got two assets, USDC and Ethereum, you can make money on those assets just by providing that to a pool. And then every time someone swaps across that pool, you'll get a little fee, right? Mm-hmm. So that's awesome. That's like means that there's like billions of dollars of traded volume across Uniswap. And for those people who don't know, I just want an extra little number for you. Like the nominal value of traded derivatives globally is $4 quadrillion in nominal value every year through DTCC, right? So like this is like, Uniswap's the baby market if this is done correctly. But what has to happen is there has to be liquidity. So how are you guys doing that?
So, I mean, Guillem was saying it earlier. That was the core problem, right? I mean, there are lots of problems, but it felt like that is the first problem, because if you don't solve that problem, you don't have liquidity. If you don't have liquidity, then there is no service.
Right.
And so that's where we turned to the Kelly criterion. It maybe worth just spending 30 seconds on it.
Yep.
The Kelly criterion is typically used to size the risk. Like if you're offered a bet on the blackjack or in poker, and you're able to read the odds, the kind of the statistical probabilities of outcomes, the Kelly criterion tells you what's out of your full capital, what's the optimal percentage that you should put at risk, such that it maximizes your long-term compounding rate. Mm-hmm. And that sounds like a nuance, but it's actually fundamental. It's optimizing for the compounding rate over time. So as you keep doing that bet, it's maximizing growth.
Right.
And so we've actually extended the Kelly criterion from the world of sizing, which is what Kelly does. It helps you to size your position, to the world of sizing and pricing.
Right.
And so when you're an LP in Potion, you're allowed to use these bonding curves that are very special. They have a very unique shape. They're of the family X times the hyperbolic cosine of X, which you can think of just in the same way that Uniswap has XY equals K as its internal bonding curve to derive prices. We figured out that you can synthesize the Kelly criterion onto a bonding curve that happens to have the shape X times the hyperbolic cosine of X. And then we allow you to instantiate.
And, clearly, everyone is just going to be able to track that in their head, so we don't need to go into that anymore.
Absolutely, it's self-evident stuff. But this was actually like a really clean result that came out spontaneously. Like we just derived these curves, and they just happen to have this shape. So it was kind of a very simple result like that. And in our backtesting, what we show is that when you're taking risk, but are sizing and pricing according to these special bonding curves, then you do get a positive expectation of compounding growth rate. And so I think the example we gave in the last episode is you're acting a little bit like the house in the casino. So you're accepting bets on the blackjack, and you may momentarily lose, every few trades you may lose, but on the whole, over time, you're going to make money. And so that's kind of the game that you're playing as an LP. You're trying to determine the right bonding curve, and then when you apply it over time, you should be ahead. Just to add a little bit of extra dimensions to this, one thing that's quite neat with Potion is that you don't need a specific pool for every asset combination. And then you were just making this point. If I'm buying Bitcoin 30,000 6 months, that's one contract, right? And that's one ERC20 token. It's not very scalable if I need to open a separate pool for every instrument parameterization, right? So one thing that we allow LPs to do is say, here's my curve. Let's say this curve has a certain shape. And using Potion Analytics, I've worked out that there are 4 different assets that have a similar shape curve. Ethereum, some cover, Bitcoin Maker. I can actually sell potions, put options for the 4 assets from a single pool. So from the perspective of the LP, that's amazing because you're getting higher capital efficiency, you're getting higher utilization, and you're at the same time diversifying. So these are all things that you want, that we allow to happen simultaneously. I don't think there are many protocols out there that allow you to achieve this type of capital efficiency on the LP side.
Right. So, I mean, essentially what you're doing is you're saying, look, the LP are providing risk capital, and all of these different bets are just that. They're bets against the future price of those assets. And it doesn't matter what assets they are from the point of view of the capital. It much more matters what the it matters what the assets are in terms of their covariance to each other and the risk profiles of those assets to make sure that you don't end up in a situation where you make bets that can zero out your position, right? But from a option writer's point of view, and actually, like banks do this as well. When a bank is running a book, they look at their entire book of derivatives, and a lot of the times they'll be looking out to zero out the risk overall, where you don't want to be, I mean, naked options is one example of this, right? But you don't want to be writing risks that can lead you to the point of default, and you'll look at the entire risk of your book and make sure that you don't have any uncovered risks. And you're basically doing the same thing, but like in an automated way. You're going, right, we will. Yeah, go on.
Correct. No, and actually, you hit on a really important point, which is you want to be looking at your entire book as much as possible.
Right.
And looking at what's your value at risk. Like if I have $1 million and I'm already at 800K outstanding value at risk, then if I get a new order, that's a very different situation from if I have an entire $1 million and I have no money at risk.
Right.
Potion automatically increases the premium the higher your utilization is. And what we were saying is that utilization can be for one individual instrument. I can open a pool and I dedicate that pool exclusively to Bitcoin 80% or 20% out of the money. Or I can actually have several different instruments all participating from a single pool on the basis that these instruments have a similar risk profile.
Okay. And here, if I may, and getting back to your original question on what do we need to scale this liquidity, I think, Jordi, you hit the nail on the automated aspect. I think what you need to scale it is automated risk management, and as I was saying before. And in the case of, let's go to the case of Uniswap, for example. You're NLP in Uniswap. It's true that operationally it's very simple for you to be an LP, but if you want to make long-term, if you want to see your capital growing long-term, you will need to be very, very active. Like you cannot simply put your liquidity there and expect this to grow, because there are a variety, if you think about the price paths of the assets that you're putting liquidity for, they are stochastic, right? And there's a whole bunch of paths that lead you to ruin very easily, right? So if that path materializes, you're out of the game, long-term and even mid-term or short-term, right? The idea with Potion that we're pursuing is, okay, can I have a strategy, an automated strategy embedded in the bonding curve? The bonding curve is your ally for automation in AMMs, right? Can I have a bonding curve that covers me in kind of almost every scenario, statistically speaking? So this idea that Jordi was saying about, the more utilized you are as an LP, so you have your pool of capital, and it may be more or less utilized. The more utilized it is, the more expensive you need to sell your options. With the Cali criterion, we found exactly how much more expensive you need to make it. That's what the bonding curve tells you. And that simple intuition actually you can prove that it leads to this long-term capital growth.
Right.
It leads you to this scenario where you know that, there might be many possible price paths out there, but you will be, just by using this simple heuristic, the more utilized and more expensive, you will be protected in the long run.
So I suppose the question is, from an LP's point of view, from a liquidity provider's point of view, what do they need and how idiot-proof is the starting point?
So they need USDC because all the options are collateralized with USDC. This is nice in a sense because that enables this scenario we were talking about. If you buy BTC from BTC options, I'm going to collateralize them with USDC. If you buy Ethereum options, I'm still going to collateralize them with USDC. So that makes it very simple. It's only one asset that you can provide. I wouldn't say that is completely foolproof. So if you're not like super familiar, maybe you don't want to jump into it just yet. But I don't think it's your case. But yeah, I mean, people should. I'm trying to be serious here in terms of this is risky stuff. So if you don't know what you're doing, you probably want to hang out on the sidelines for now.
Yeah.
I think it's modular enough that you can probably participate in pools that are managed for you, so you don't have to do that work directly. But also, you don't need to be that sophisticated. Like we've built Potion Analytics to help a regular person do some basic Monte Carlo backtesting, get an idea for what happens if the market moves against me very aggressively, medium aggressively. So you can play with yourself until you get a good grasp for what's happening. And then when you're decided, basically you need to make a few simple decisions. Which assets do you want to sell? Bitcoin, Maker, whatever. At what protection and length? And at what price? And this price, even though we have found this kind of formulaic mathematical way to derive these curves, we've actually left it open-ended. So the Kelly criterion optimal curve is almost your starting point. This is the mathematics that tell you if you price below that, then you're going to be in pain. But we won't prevent people pricing above that. So you can actually build a small degree of risk tolerance, where even if you mess up a little bit with the assumption that you made on the probability of returns, you have a buffer of risk that you can offset. But these are the decisions you need to take: the asset that you want to underwrite, basically, and the price that you want to charge.
I think one other nice thing that we kind of designed was like a progressive kind of user experience. So you can enter the system as an LP, initially from a very basic approach where you just copy positions. So as you were saying in the beginning, I think there's a ton of value in bringing data from the chain into the front end, and you digest it and you show some metrics, and you can show, for example, some P&L charts. You can see, you can rank in Potion. You have this kind of discover pool sections that you can imagine it's like Netflix. You can browser pools, configurations, and you can see, okay, this pool, I can see the trajectory of the P&L. I can see several metrics on how much collateral is in this type of pools or whatever. And I can be, guided by that. And I say, okay, this is a very popular pool. It seems to be making our regularly steady kind of income like that. And, maybe I don't want to overcomplicate things too much. And I just want to go with the crowd. And I'll just copy that pool. And you can exactly do that. Like you can click a button that says clone this pool, and you will automatically instantiate that same pool with the same configurations for you, and you can start from there. Or you can actually kind of clone it, but modify it a little bit and make it your own and work like that. Then as you progress later on, you can go into more advanced user flows for the LP, and you can go into what we call the custom journey for the LP, where you use Potion Analytics first, you derive your own bonding curve, you do your own research in a sense, but we give you the tools. And then you construct on the front end your specific custom pool, right? And I think I love this because, I think it allows people to grow with the app. So it's not an app that you just use once and you always use it the same. You can enter knowing very few about being an LP in derivatives, and you can learn and you can grow with the app, and the app will show you kind of more complex paths like that. I think that is something I would love for people to kind of use like that, right? To as a platform for learning as you do.
That's really awesome. So I suppose last question is like, why are you guys building? What's your sort of motivation for doing all of this?
So I think we touched on it a little bit, but I think there is a bit of a backstory. Guillem and I were on a prior project, and I was lucky to make a small trip to New York, where I attended a conference by Nassim Taleb.
Yes,
and I think it was pretty transformational, and he's really big on cutting the tail risks, and right. He's all about the black swan and how like this Turkey problem that everything is fine until it completely a disaster. And so I think that's what we're trying to follow those advices. Like you should protect your tail risks, you should hedge your position. And when we saw Open come out in Hedgic and we started seeing put options, we thought, wow, now you can actually hedge your tail risks in DeFi. But what we realized was that you couldn't build like this robo hedger, which is, I think, our ultimate dream, which is I just want to cut my tail risk for my holdings automatically. Right. The problem I have is that the people that are selling me these options don't scale because each option is in its own pool, all these things that we spoke about. And so hopefully, at the end of this journey, and I don't know if we are going to be the ones doing it or somebody else. And to that respect, I don't think we care too much. At the end of the day, we just want to have high quality public goods available for everybody that allows people to manage their risk in a safe, open, cool way. And that's what we're trying to build. And whether it's our product or somebody forks it or somebody takes on it and takes it there, hopefully that's where we will land at the end of the road.
That's really cool. That's really cool.
Well, it's a very personal question as well. Like I think that what Jordi was saying is, why are we building Potion in particular?
Right.
And then if you make it more general, like why are we building and I think that kind of gets tricky, right? Like being a founder in Web3 and in DeFi is definitely not easy. Is a very challenging journey, as you probably know.
I don't know what you're talking about. Communities are always friendly and forgiving.
Easy. Yes.
No, low expectation, easy management, no risk for the founder. Yeah, no, right.
and you see many people in the sidelines and that are with you in the space, and maybe they're not founders and they are using their talent and their time for other business, like for instance, for trading their own positions and growing their own capital, and they spend their full time on that, and that's really great for them. And you see yourself, oh wow, I'm lacking of time to do this, to trade my own positions or to learn more about what other protocols are doing. But that's I mean, at least from my point of view, that's okay. I don't care about that. I think building in Web3 nowadays is a blessing, and being able to being supported by a startup and by a team and so on, and by a community, I think it's incredibly cool, and it's something that those of us who are building in Web3 right now, I think we're privileged people, and we will be more privileged in the future in the sense that these skills that we're gaining and this ability to build things with our hands will become more and more and more relevant in the societies of the future. So at least to me, I'm all into building right now.
If I may, really quickly, I just really love what Guillem just said, and almost at a philosophical standpoint, we were discussing this earlier, Piers. We really feel like we just happen to be alive at this incredibly crazy moment in history where this technology is kind of just becoming available. And it's unbelievable to have the opportunity to build, almost like reinvent some fundamental financial services from the ground up, from a new technology layer that is open by default, that is trustless by default. I think this is a massive opportunity for almost civilization, and I mean, we're really big believers like this, but I actually think it's real. Like, humanity now has this new gift, which is decentralization, and we're just trying to make sure that we use that gift for the betterment of everyone.
Yeah, I think the opportunity is so broad for a better system, but it has to be like I often think about like public ledgers and system protocols that are built on top of those public ledgers as like founding a country. And when you found a country, you there is also an intention that goes into the founding that echoes through generations. You can see it in the founding of America. You can see it in the founding of the UK. You can see it in the founding of newer countries. And like the intention that was brought forth in the creation ends up shaping the society that builds out of that. And I think that as long as there are people who are building with the right intention, we're going to end up with a better system. And I think that a lot of the people building today, like you guys, are fundamentally idealists. And I think that that's important.
Agreed.
So it's wonderful talking with you guys again. Thank you so much for coming on. If people want to find out more about Potion or get involved with your community, how should they get involved? Where should they go?
So I think our Discord is where all the magic is happening, and your easiest way there is through our website, potion.fi or potion.finance. We're also on Twitter and all the usual places. We have a Medium, we have a small YouTube channel, lots of places, but start in potion.finance. Come say hi on Discord, regardless of your level, whether you're super sophisticated and want to go into the bowels of Kelly, we want to talk to you. If you're kind of hearing about this for the first time, we want to talk to you. If you're interested in protecting your position, we want to talk to you. So just feel free to come and hang out with us.
Awesome. Jordi, Guillem, lovely to have you. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.